This episode of Warp 5 discusses mature themes and subject matter. Listener discretion is advised. This episode of Warp 5 is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek FM at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the non-profit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join in on the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode or any other, please join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, that's B-A-B-E-L, into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
Hi, this is Gary Graham, Ambassador Saval in Star Trek. You're listening to Warp 5.
How we doing, Trip? Ready when you are. Prepare for warp.
Course laid in, sir. Request permission to get underway. Let's go.
Welcome, Boomers, to another episode of Warp 5, Trek FM's dedicated Enterprise podcast, where the hosts of the network get together and discuss, you guessed it, Enterprise. And Floyd is still away because, we do 2 episodes in one night and the internet is down in his area, so we unfortunately had to have no Floyd for the last 2 episodes, and that makes us all very sad. But we've got some wonderful guests joining us again for his... Is this your 3rd or your 4th appearance on Warp 5 now, Richard?
Yeah, this is like my 3rd. Yeah.
Your 3rd with us. You weren't on before us, were you?
I was once.
Okay,
Yeah,
so then you're 4th. Because you did that one Captain Archer episode with us, too.
I did. No, that makes it 4, actually, yeah.
Yeah, so then, right on. Yeah, and then joining us for her 2nd visit is Miss Amy Nelson.
Hello, Boomers. I'm back. It's been a while.
It has. And the last time we talked about one of the lesser fan favorite episodes, and you know what? That's what we're going to do again.
Yeah, we are.
So tonight's episode, I decided to have a little fun, and I was thinking, I was listening to Earl Grey, and they were talking about how much they love The Perfect Mate, and I was thinking about Precious Cargo, and I thought we should compare the two. So who else could discuss these 2 episodes with me than Richard and Amy? So I thought it would be wonderful to have them on for this wonderful discussion. So we will be talking about these 2 episodes, and they're very similar, don't you think?
Very, very, very similar, yeah. Pretty much on the same, kind of storyline, but, obviously with their differences. But, I would say that, they're very similar, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Amy, what do you think?
I'm going to disagree with you.
Ooh.
And say, no, they are very, very different, and I think that we'll see why. I can see why we would want to put them together, but they, to me, are very, very different.
We will talk about that, but Amy, you know what? I think they're going to be a little bit more similar than you actually think that they are. So, Amy, do you want to do me a favor? Can you give me a little bit of a summary just a quick summary for The Perfect Mate?
Oh, yeah, Perfect Mate. Well, this is the one where they are transporting this pod that has a woman inside of it, and it is woken up early, and she is going to be used as a peace treaty with these 2...
No, Amy, I told you to do one for The Perfect Mate, not Precious Cargo.
Hey, now. So she's going to be this peace treaty for these 2 people, and that's her main goal in life. And so hijinks ensue. And we get to talk about Ferengi again on Warp 5, so that was funny.
And then in Precious Cargo, so the Enterprise encounters this ship, and they've got this woman in a pod, and they wake her up early. And didn't you just say this, Amy?
Well, maybe.
Okay.
Okay, I see your point.
Okay. Yeah. Anyways, and then she's off to get married to some guy, and there's these two aliens, not quite Ferengi, but still, profit mongers and whatnot. And yeah. Anyways, I think they're pretty darn similar. So why don't you tell me, Amy, right off the bat, why you think that they're not very similar?
Well, the purpose and the motives of the main character here in both of these. So she wasn't being transported by her own free will. She was being held captive and being held as ransom. Whereas on The Perfect Mate, Kamala, whatever. Yeah, Kamala. She was going of her own free will and volition. So to me, that's a stark difference that really needs to be addressed. And yeah,
well,
that's the first one.
Okay, so their attitudes are very different. But this Kaitama, she's a prisoner, and she was attacked on her way home from a diplomatic mission. Yes, so she's not exactly like the perfect mate. She's not bred for this like Kamala was. But she's to be the first monarch of the sovereign dynasty of Krios Prime, right? And then she was been kidnapped for a ransom. But did you know that it's the same planet that they're talking about?
No.
Yeah, so...
Nuh-uh.
It is.
Yep.
So it's Krios Prime. Like she also comes from Krios Prime, right? So, and the makeup is the same and everything, right? So like that was
okay. I did have that. I'm like, okay. The only thing I can see is that they have the same makeup.
Mm-hmm.
That was the only thing, and I was wondering why it was the same. And now I know. Why did I not make that connection? You guys are so smart.
You know what? I gotta say, I didn't actually make the comparison until now, like when I was doing some research for it. Richard, did you know that it was the same planet?
I did. Yeah, it's been a while, but yeah, yeah, I already knew that they were the same planet. Yes, I did.
And how did you know that?
I just did.
You're just amazing. The amazing Richard Marquez, everybody.
So
fist bump.
Word.
Is Kamala from that same planet, or is she's going to be the peace treaty for that planet?
No, they're both from Krios Prime. Now, the interesting thing about Krios Prime as well that we'll talk about is Krios was mentioned one other time in Star Trek The Next Generation. However, there's some debate as to whether or not it's the same planet or not. But in the episode of The Next Generation called The Mind's Eye, which is the one where Geordi gets kidnapped by the Romulans, the Klingon colony is on Krios. Right? And so some books refer to it as the same planets and some don't, right? So Memory Alpha says there's some debate as to whether or not the planet seen in The Perfect Mate and Precious Cargo and The Mind's Eye is the same planet, or as like if it's the same planet in all three. But there's no definitive statement in any episode to clarify. But no other similarities exist other than their name. So, it might be, it might not be. The Star Trek Encyclopedia lists one reference for Krios, and it references all of them. However, StarTrek.com stated explicitly that they were two different planets. So,
Okay.
So it's just kind of funny. Like, that's not really... The Klingon planet could be or it couldn't be. It doesn't matter. But otherwise, yeah, they're referring to the same planet when they're talking with the Perfect Mate and Precious Cargo, which I think is pretty fascinating. So,
well, then they are even more similar than I knew.
That's why I said that right at the beginning. You got it.
And the name is, the first letter and the last letter are the same too. I'm just kidding.
Well, yeah, one of them is Kamala, and one of them I have a tough time with Kaitama. Kaitama, I think is how they say
that's
it.
That's what it looks like. Yeah.
Yeah, Kaitama.
Yeah.
But their attitudes are very different. I mean, Kamala is very passive. She can be aggressive, right? But in general, Kamala is generally a passive person. She's accepting the situation that she's in, and she's happy to be where she is, and she's not fighting it. And and Kaitama is angry and frustrated, because she was kidnapped, right? So they have a different motivation, and
Okay, so I'm just gonna stop you there because we sort of had this discussion on Earl Grey with Justin because we know Justin doesn't enjoy this episode, but
and
when
he's
you
conspicuously
say that,
absent from this current podcast.
Yes. So you say that Kamala is accepting. Like, to me, I think you're disregarding her entire choice and saying, well, she couldn't want to have chosen to be a perfect mate and to be pleasing to a husband. Like you're disregarding, when I hear that, it feels like you're disregarding her choice that she truly wants to be a wife and be someone's wife. And so when you say, well, she's accepting.
She doesn't.
I just think that her choice in it matters. And if that's what she wants to choose, then we should be supportive of that and say that's what you want to choose, and don't think that there's any ulterior motives behind it.
Well, but here the thing is that with her, she bonded with Picard, and Picard basically rejected her, and there really was no alternative for her to stay with him, or even try to stay with him, because he rejected her. I mean, he knows, or he believes in his mind that he doesn't deserve her, or that he would hurt relations, and obviously he's thinking of his job before his actual feelings in love life. And that's ultimately what her purpose is. I mean, she doesn't give anything else. That what other purpose does she has, except for that she caters to her mate's needs and interests and whatnot, and that's ultimately what she did with Picard. And really, there's nothing outside of that. I mean, it's kind of hard to, whether or not she had a choice or not. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it kind of put her in, it put her into a corner when he rejected her. Mm-hmm. So really, there was nowhere for her to go except for to go on that mission to, in a sense, seal the deal. Or it's probably not an appropriate way to think of it, but yeah, but ultimately, yeah, that's what it is. Yeah,
Amy, I'm going to play the devil's advocate here. I'm going to ask you this question, and this is the question that I've heard, and I hope I'm saying the question right. Is that, was Kamala given a choice? Does she actually have the choice when her entire life is she's been raised to say that you are destined for this? You are destined to marry this man and please him. That's your goal in life. And everything in her life, like, she's obviously lived a very privileged life, right? I'm sure that she's lived her entire life without want. I'm sure she had everything she wanted. She's clearly knowledgeable. She learned a lot of things. I mean, she knows about that thimble that Picard had in his room, and those tapestries that were all painted brightly and whatnot. But was she actually given a choice? And how are we to feel? What if she doesn't know any better? So I'll ask you that question, and then I'll go where I want to go with that. What do you think about that type of an argument?
Well, I think with her situation, I got the impression that she was born, so it was sort of in her DNA. Like, that's who she was. So I didn't think that was a choice per se, that yes, she was raised to embellish and to accentuate who her DNA was. That's sort of what I got when she said that she was the first of her kind within how many generations?
Mm-hmm.
I figured that was
years.
like that was her DNA, that's who she was. So do you argue and have a choice of say, well, that's who I am?
I don't know. See, these episodes are difficult episodes to discuss because, as I found out becoming on social media here, that these episodes provoke strong reactions with people that watch it. And in my opinion, they boil it down to the simplest factor. A lot of the people that dislike this episode, they boil it down to this woman's being prostituted out. And I don't agree with that statement myself. Okay, and I look at the episode and I watch it, and the one thing about Star Trek, which we all love about Star Trek, is you can take the lens of science fiction, and you can hold it up to a topic and filter it. And looking at it through that filter, we can look at it from without. So we're humans looking on an alien race, and we can stop and say, wait a minute, they're actually making a comment on us and our lives. Now, some of the things that you've brought up where... Have you seen the episode of Star Trek Enterprise that's called Cogenitor? Which is the...
Yes.
Yeah, so it has the third gender, and its goal in life, and its lot in life is to be this third gender that's needed in order for everybody else to have babies. And it's not treated anywhere else, and it's fine with its life. Until Trip comes in and teaches it something different. Now, that episode is saying something completely different than what the Perfect Mate is saying. And Cogenitor is actually trying to tackle a topic about our society, about transgendered people and people's lot in life. But I don't think that they're trying to do that with the Perfect Mate. And the reason why I personally take that filter off of the Perfect Mate and just watch it for entertainment value is because they address all of these concerns in the episode. Beverly Crusher sitting down and talking with Captain Picard addresses the concern of, well, how can you do this, Jean-Luc, and blah, 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 blah. And so they have an argument back and forth about the situation. And Picard has this discussion directly with Kamala. And Kamala is insistent every time. She's like, no, this is what I want. So at what point do we as viewers stop trying to find a meaning in an episode that I don't think is intended to be there? And that's the difficult thing that I have with this episode, because I understand what they're saying. Trafficking women is not correct, but this is not trying to be representative of something in our society, I don't think.
Yeah, that's exactly why I'm saying, like, her choice should be respected. And throughout the entire episode, there's not one time where she doubts what her choice and lot in life is, and that's what she chooses. And so I'm fine that is her role, that she wants to be the perfect mate. She wants to please her husband. She wants to, fulfill the desires and have stimulating conversation in order for her mate to be happy. And I'm, as a woman, am fine if other people want to do that. That's their choice.
Right, and the other thing is that people boil it down to, well, she's simply there as basically a sexual tool for the man. And that's not what Kamala is at all, because she's not just there to please her husband sexually. She's there to be exactly what he wants and needs in a mate, right?
Absolutely,
depending on the person that she's with, she imprints on him, right? And, with Picard, it was all about books and knowledge, right?
And the conversation and the debate, and yeah.
And so it's not just about sex, and that's what people kind of boil it down to, right? And I mean, like, even the guy, the dictator at the end, or I use the term dictator, that's not correct, but the leader of the other world at the end, he's like, I'm not even interested in the woman, right? And so that's what makes the episode sad. But I don't know, like, I see what people are talking about, I understand it, but I mean, at what point do we stop and say, okay, at what point do we stop and say there isn't a message here that's a reflection of something in our society? I don't know. Like, I know this is going to cause a controversy when this episode comes out. Like, it's gonna cause discussion, and I just hope people understand what I'm saying. I understand the concerns that people have with the issues. With the episode, I just don't see them.
Well, and I think, and I wrote these characteristics and traits down when I was watching it, because, she describes, what type of mate that would be happy, that would be perfect for Picard. She says, independent, forceful, brilliant, and adventurous. There's none of those that in any way, shape, or form means sexual or doing sexual acts or being a slave. I mean, those are all things that Picard wants, and we learn more about Picard through her, but that she's very capable, very brilliant, independent. She can be all of these things. It's not into this, oh, I'm going to give in to your sexual desires. And later, she also says that Picard is very passionate with conviction, controlled, and disciplined. Again, those are characteristics that we learn about Picard through her because she's intelligent enough to decipher what Picard wants and who he is. And I don't think any of that has to do with the sexual nature of her or their relationship. I mean, of course, it's drawn upon when they're going through, Data's walking through her with 10 forward and all the guys oohing and on and stuff, you know. I mean, that's there because she's a very beautiful woman. And that is a part of the episode that does need to be addressed. But when you look at her and Picard's relationship and her imprinting, it's, to me, is not this sexual thing that's people talk about.
So now the sexual thing that is there that people talk about is like when Riker takes her to the quarters, right? And Riker clearly wants that out of her, but that's not what Picard wants. You know, like she's all over Riker because that's what he wants. And then Riker, being the loyal officer, is able to withdraw himself from the situation and then go take a 5-minute break in the holodeck, right?
Oh my gosh. Do we have to bring that up?
Yes, I think so. Richard, what do you think about the Riker going to the holodeck?
Wow.
So cliche. It's like, oh, I need to go take a cold shower. Really?
I don't think he was taking a shower. You don't go to the holodeck for a shower.
I don't think so either.
Anyways, okay, we can skip that part now. We can go on from there.
Well, I wanted to talk about that because when I saw that, again, I don't know how many times I've seen this episode, but I saw Kamala and Riker, she forced herself on him. Like, he was being the good boy and, you know, duty first and, you know, here's your quarters and da-da-da. Like, she forced herself on him. And I was thinking to myself, this feels wrong. And what did you think about that? Did you feel that she was forcing herself on him? Or was it that, and again, this thing like, oh, well, I know you want it, so I'm going to give it to you. And that just screamed wrong to me.
Well, I mean, like I said, this is through the filter of science fiction. You know, it's different when you know, she has the ability to be empathetic and actually, you know, have powers to actually know what you're thinking and all that kind of stuff, or even know what you're feeling, or even your sexual desires. I mean, shoot, that I mean, I guess if there was no such thing as abilities and all that kind of stuff, then yeah, I would probably think the same thing. But like I said, you know, it's through the filter of science fiction, and she has those abilities, so God knows how far those abilities go in what you know he's actually desiring through her and whatnot. So I didn't see it that way, but I mean, I just saw it as, okay, well, that's science fiction, you know. Yeah, she might have some. She might know something that I don't know.
See, I didn't see it that way either. I didn't see herself as, you know, being aggressive and whatnot. Like we've had a lot of discussion recently on the Babel conference because we've recently done a commentary for the episode Bound on Warp 5. And so we've been talking a lot about the Orions, and it's generated a lot of interesting discussion on it. And, you know, there's intent, you know, behind the Orions and their pheromones and you know, Star Trek does have a history of, you know, sexualizing women. Right? And we have these alien races that are very sexy, and they, you know, men can't control themselves. And, you know, part of it's silly, but I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
Another one's for ratings.
Well, I just want to interject because I was, in preparation for The Edge, I watched Mud's Women and I Mud. And in Mud's Women, there we've got these women that have this control over the men with their sexual beauty, and that they're being, you know, sold to the miners as wives and stuff like that. But their beauty was above and beyond, and all the guys on the ship were stopping what they're doing to stare. Yeah. So there definitely is a strong precedence for that.
Right. And, you know, that's like Mud's a whole different topic here. I'm trying to search for something on Twitter here while we're chatting because it's something I want to bring up. But I'm just going to lay it out like I tried to have a comparison between the two episodes, but I mean, like, The Perfect Mate, I think, is such an overwhelming episode because, in my opinion, I think it's a really good episode, and I think people simply write it off because you've got this woman who's being given to somebody as a wife, and people write it off to the lowest common denominator of, hey, they're prostituting off this woman. And I find that frustrating because I think that The Perfect Mate has a lot to offer. And, maybe we should actually release this episode as an Earl Grey instead of, because we're barely touching on Precious Cargo right now. Because
we'll get there.
Yeah,
but
I mean, I don't think Precious Cargo has as much to talk about as The Perfect Mate does. That's the only thing. But I'm okay with it. I'm just being silly and digressing. But I think it's a lot more than that. And this character is an incredibly in-depth character, and there's a lot more to her than this. And I think that the reason that the evidence for this is because of how she reacts with Picard. And even Picard, like, Picard has this opinion of her. Even Picard has this opinion that she's basically this sex slave, because when she's going to talk to him, like, you need to come and visit me, and he says that's inappropriate, and she's like, I just want you to talk to me. I didn't ask you to make love to me.
Right.
And she's frustrated because she's turning into what he wants at that time because she's bonding with him. Mm-hmm. And that's, I don't know, I think it's such a fascinating episode, and there's really a lot to offer in The Perfect Mate.
I agree.
So, you guys keep talking. I want to try and find something here. Here it is. Actually, I just found it right here. So yes, we've got this instance of, in television stuff where we've got a lot of sexualized women when it comes to television writing. Yes, I understand that. But, I don't know if this is the same thing, and please tell me if I'm wrong. It doesn't bother me. What I'm about to share doesn't bother me at all. Okay? But I often wonder, what is the difference? So, for example, I'm seeing a tweet, and they tagged Mary the Chief, who's Mary Chiefo, Laurel on Discovery. And it's a drawing of Kirk and Spock. And it says, that human on the left, which is Kirk in the drawing, I'm going to make him my boy toy at Mary the Chief. Okay, so it's just a tweet of drawing of Kirk and Spock. And this person saying that I'm going to make Kirk my boy toy. It's just a drawing. There's nothing lewd about the drawing or anything. And it's like, well, how would anybody react if I drew a picture of Troy and Crusher and I said, yo, hey, I'm going to make Troy my girl toy? The internet would explode because I'm a man sexualizing a woman, right? But, I mean, like, we get this thing here, and Mary Chief's response is the emojis of an A-OK and a wink. It doesn't bother me. I don't care. But when I see tweets like that, I think, well, what if a man made that tweet for a woman?
Yeah, the double standard.
It is a double standard. And so now I see that, and then I take another look at this episode, right? And then I take a look at Precious Cargo. And then, yes, I do see that we've got an episode where we are sexualizing a woman, and I do see that. However, I think the story ends up being more than just that.
Agreed. I don't... Yeah, that tweet, and unfortunately, I was just like, oh, why do they have to do that? Because, in my opinion, that just sort of takes back all of the progression that women have tried to have to not be taken completely as sexual objects. And so when women do that, it just, to me, is a step backwards in progression and trying to get people to realize that, everyone isn't here for our sexual desires and to be a toy. I mean, it doesn't matter who says it, a man or a woman. Like, there's more to a person than just being your toy. So I don't like that tweet, and I don't like that response to it, but that's my personal preference.
Yeah. I see things like this all the time, too, like in Star Trek fan groups, and I get so frustrated when I see it. And it is usually from men, where they'll post a picture of somebody. Like, somebody posted a picture about Tilly, and I'm paraphrasing what the post said, but it was like, I think Tilly's the hottest Star Trek girl around. What do you think? And it's like why do people have this rating system where we need to rate the hotness of people? But I mean, and I do see that kind of thing more from male fans than I do from female fans. But the fact of the matter is, it is there from female fans as well, right? So this discussion's kind of going all over the place, and I don't know if I'm going to get myself in trouble with this. But I mean, like, these are things that I think about with my fandom, and these are things that I talk about. And I told Richard way before we were talking about this, I'm like, I don't know if I want to get into any of this, right? Because it is a can of worms, right? And I don't know. Richard, you've been quiet. Save me, please.
Yeah, I'm not going to save you, buddy. I understand what you're saying, where you're coming from, and I was actually just thinking, is like, would it make a difference if a woman actually wrote The Perfect Mate, or if a woman wrote Precious Cargo? Would it make a difference, or would the attitudes change or whatnot? But yeah, there are a lot of things that I was going to say that'll probably get us all in trouble. But I mean, it's just you're right. It's a double standard. It's a double-edged sword. And sadly, it's more towards us guys to get more into trouble with that. But honestly, I don't. I find that very untrue, because I just think that women are the same way. And I'm not saying you, Amy, or anything like that. I'm just saying, in general, in the population of the women that I've ever met, it's the same thing on the other side. It's just not commercialized like it is, in the world today, because it's in a sense a man's world. It's all out there. So everything that we say is out there, whereas it's no different on the other side. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm sure you have. I'm sure, Amy, you have too. I certainly have. Talking with my wife and several other people, and it's not just us guys. It's everyone. It's just not shown much when it comes to women. And when you say progression, I mean progression. I mean, yeah. Progression for all of us, not just for one side. I mean, like, I really think that it just, if we were to stop doing all this, maybe we might have progression. I don't know, but it's just not. I don't know. I see it as a double-edged sword. If I were to say, oh, it doesn't happen on the other side, but it actually does, if that more. And it just like this episode. I mean, boil it down, I mean, I don't see it as an episode where I guess the females being sexualized. I mean, honestly, I really think it's a genuine story about her trying to get to know Picard, and I think I honestly think it's a great story. But that's just me.
See, we're recording this on November 1st right now, and we're coming off of a lot of things over the last couple of weeks. We've recently had that. Twitter and Facebook, I don't know what the term is for it, like a blitz, I guess, or something like that, where they've had the hashtag Me Too.
And then all the sexual allegations with Hollywood and everything else. Yeah,
but not just that, but the amount of people that I saw, sharing stories, like people that I know, right? People that I know personally in my life that were sharing stories of this. Like, it is eye-opening. And I'm not trying to say that, I'm not trying to wipe the blanket and say men aren't pigs, because I think a lot of them are, right? And I think that, yes, there's a lot of sexual assault out there, and it's all wrong, right? And that was an eye-opening event for me. I mean, I tweeted myself, like, it's not me, but I've had family members that have been, raped and assaulted. And it affects everybody, right? My sister was. It affects us. Like, that was a traumatic event when I was a teenager because my sister got raped. And, but I see examples like this tweet, and I hear what people say about something like The Perfect Mate, which, I don't necessarily see what they're seeing. I'm hearing what they're saying, right? And then I look at an example of the episodes like, T'Pol. Like, Jolene Blaylock's a beautiful woman. She's very attractive. And I see women get all crazy when guys have their shirts off in shows. And you know what? Like, T'Pol's hot, and I'm happy to see her without her shirt on a show and see her butt crack, right? Because she's beautiful, right? Like, I don't know. Like, but do I have to feel guilty when I see that? I don't know. Like, these are questions that I have as I'm being exposed to this knowledge and exposed to these points of view that other people have.
Well, I think, no, you shouldn't feel guilty. But I think part of the problem that up until, I would say, Discovery, like, you look at the two women of Precious Cargo and Perfect Mate. Those women are incredibly beautiful, and they are portrayed to be sexual in nature. And when you were talking, I was thinking, you know, about that tweet, and it's like, well, gosh, I watched Discovery, and I'm like, you know, that doctor there, he's pretty darn good looking. Look at those muscles and, you know, under his shirt and stuff like that. Or when he's brushing his teeth, you know, I was like, oh, he's pretty good looking. And then now all of a sudden Ash Tyler's getting pretty cute to me, but I don't see them, being portrayed as sexual as Precious Cargo and T'Pol and Seven of Nine and, you know, that sexuality. And that's not to say that they aren't sexual, but it's just not, it doesn't seem to be as portrayed as much. And I don't think the women are on the show. That's why I say up until Discovery, I think we're just seeing, and it's natural to want to see beautiful people, especially on TV, right? Because this is our world that we're make-believe and stuff like that. So having beautiful people and recognizing it isn't an issue, because I can say without a doubt, like Kamala and the one from Precious Cargo, say her name again.
Oh, goodness. Karma Chameleon?
Yeah,
Karma
Like-
Chameleon?
I can definitely say both of those women are drop dead gorgeous, but we don't see that as much as in Discovery, which I think is good that it's not being so sexualized as has been in the past.
Now, and I'm fully aware. Okay, now I'm going to stop and say I'm fully aware. We don't have the perfect male mate episode. We don't have the precious male cargo mate. I am aware that we don't have those episodes. Right? I am aware that these are one-sided episodes and that it is just women that are portrayed this way. I can't think of an episode, right, where there's a male in a situation remotely close to this. And I'm aware that we don't have that. Okay? Mm-hmm. However, I am also aware in the episode The Perfect Mate that they say, like, with this society, there are tons and tons and tons of men that are identical to Kamala, but Kamala is rare. And I understand that's just a storytelling element, and I'm not saying that makes it correct or proper or anything. But, you know, I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with that train of thought, right? It's just that they're saying that society also has men that are like that as well. Right? And I know. I'm aware that there's no men episodes that are like this.
And what planet was this so I can get over there?
Krios Prime.
All right.
Krios Prime. You can book your ticket now. The Ferengi will take you there.
Okay.
This is a challenging subject, right? But it's something that I've wanted to talk about in my fandom. You know, and this is evolving well past the comparison to the episodes, and I didn't really want to take it this way, but I mean, it's something that's on my heart because Star Trek is so important to me. And, you know, I have overlooked a lot of these things because, again, I just watched them as a youth. I watched them over and over. And at my youth, these weren't issues that were addressed. They were not really issues that were talked about with my mom or my stepdad. We never really talked about things like this. But now that I'm older, I mean, I've got 3 daughters now. I mean, like, am I going to show them Precious Cargo and say, hey, this is fine. Look at this wonderful episode. Hey, this is The Perfect Mate. Look at this wonderful episode. I don't know. I mean, these are issues that I got to start thinking of. People are questioning whether they're going to, you know, show Discovery to their kids because of the violence and swearing, and I'm having those same concerns. Right? I'll cover my daughter's eyes, but it's harder to cover her ears because you can still hear the F word when you cover people's ears, right? You know, so I'm sorry this is such a free conversation. This is really directionless, but it's just things and...
No, and you're well within your right to do that because ultimately that's what these 2 episodes represent. Is that, you know, it's not right for human trafficking. I mean, obviously, like, Precious Cargo is, one of those episodes where she was forced, and The Perfect Mate is directly the opposite of whether or not what role she has in society. And yeah, I mean, drawing a comparison between the two, you have to talk about issues like that because, I mean, you have to bring up that kind of conversation in order to properly discuss this. I mean, I don't particularly. I mean, so what? So one experiment that I was actually thinking about doing is that when Eva gets to a certain age, I'm going to show her these episodes, and just to see what she thinks. Would not tell her what it is, just let her see what it is and what conclusions she brings up. And and so that's how I teach Eva a lot, is that I usually don't tell her things, and obviously I'm not going to show her like rated R stuff and MA or whatever. Just something like this is pretty harmless, but like to draw her own conclusions on what she just saw. And that's ultimately what I was just thinking about Precious Cargo. Is like, I want to ask her questions. Like, what did you think about this episode? What do you think this represents? Obviously, when she gets to an age that she understands that kind of stuff, or what, that shows, represent ideas and all that kind of stuff. But like, I don't know. I don't know exactly where I was going with that.
That's going to be really awesome,
Yeah.
because of the culture that she's growing up, which is so vastly different than what we grew up in, right? That's going to be really interesting to see if she even picks up on any of the stuff that we're talking, because this time frame that she's growing up now, I think is completely different. I mean, I look at the kids that I teach now, and I'm like, you guys have such a different point of perspective that is just, to me, progressive, and I love it. And so that will be awesome to see.
I mean, it's just maybe we're all overthinking it. I don't know. I mean, maybe we're all life experienced, and we've been through our own tragedies, and been through other people's tragedies as well, and that we can draw similarities to this. But what I'm just thinking is like, maybe we're just overthinking this, and maybe someone who's never really gone through what we've experienced. I mean, maybe this is just really an innocent episode, and they're like, okay, whatever. It's just someone being transported against their will, unfortunately, and hopefully they get out of that situation. Which in Precious Cargo she does. Mm-hmm. So she does, right? Yeah, she does. It's been a while since I've seen Precious Cargo.
Well, you're supposed to watch it for this, dude.
I know, but I was going off of memory.
Oh my goodness.
Sorry.
Is he this unprepared on Earl Grey?
No. He's always prepared. Wink, wink. No.
Thanks, Amy. But I don't know. It's the double standard is obviously has to be sold. Mm-hmm. So yeah.
Like I think that I don't know. I think I try and look at everything from every point of view. I don't necessarily agree with all points of view, but I think I try and have a discussion, a frank discussion, and I like to talk about these things. They're not easy to talk about. This is not an easy discussion to have because of so much stuff that's going on in our society right now, and what's been going on for years. Again, that hashtag, the Me Too, like it really opened my eyes, and which is what it was supposed to do, right? This is exactly what it was supposed to do. And I'm glad that they had that. And it's like, it made me stop and think for a while. And it made me stop and be like, damn, did I do something in my past that, have I said something to somebody that was, I didn't intend that way, and it was sexual assault? Like, have I said something or done something in my past? I don't think I have, but I don't know, because I don't remember every action I've ever done, right? And like it's concerning, and it makes me question the things that I say right now. But then it makes me also think, well, should I be ashamed that I think Trapal's attractive and I like her bum, right? But I mean, well, then I see this other tweet, of this person who's going to make Kirk her boy toy, like, I don't know. It's because of so much that's going on, and I agree that men are the major perpetrators when it comes to sexual assault. I agree with that. I understand that, and it's all wrong. But I don't know. I almost feel like I'm a sexual assaulter because I feel this way about, I don't know. I'm ranting here now, so I'm sorry.
Can I bring up another similarity, which I didn't think that they were similar, but going back to what you said, like Kamala, I mean, she says that she was born and bred to do this, and same with the female on Precious Cargo. Like, she was trained and brought up, and she's going to take over and be the first empress or whatever. Like, going back to that, do you think that there is a choice when you're born to be this X, you know? Do you have a choice to change and decide to be
Yes,
Y?
absolutely. Like in Precious Cargo, she says at the end she's going to go back and make some changes.
But no, she's still going to be empress. Like,
Yes.
she's born and bred to do that.
Right,
so
right.
that's what I'm saying.
Right. But she's also said she's going to go back and make some changes to things. And, I believe that if Kamala had been like, well, I don't want to do this, I believe that in the advanced society they would have let her made that choice.
I agree, yeah.
Right? So, but again, that's just, I don't know, like, that option was never presented in the episode, and it was never discussed. Mm-hmm. You know? Like, Kamala is an empath, and I mean, part of the reason why Riker would have been attracted to her as well is because of the pheromones she was giving off, right? Which is similar to the Orions that I was talking about in a previous episode. I mean, and this is that is a trope that writers use. They're like, oh, these women have these crazy pheromones, and they're just men can't control themselves. And I do think that is ridiculous, right? They don't need that,
Yes.
right?
That is ridiculous and wrong.
Elaborate.
Because it makes you guys stupid and Neanderthalic. I mean, it's stupid. Yes, you can control yourselves. You are intelligent, thinking human beings. It's ridiculous to say, oh, I can't control myself and therefore I'm going to assault this woman, or I can't control myself so I'm going to Google her and catcall. And like, it's such an excuse that is so wrong, in my opinion, with society. That's like, no, men are not stupid. Don't treat them as stupid, and don't give them an excuse. Oh, I had to because of your pheromones. That's a bunch of BS.
See, and I don't interpret it that way as well. Like, I've heard that argument as well, that they're making men feel like Neanderthals, and I don't read it that way as well. Like, it's how can I put it that I read it? It's like, it's not that the men are like stupid and can't control themselves. It's just they can't control themselves because of this thing. I don't know. Maybe it's the same thing, and I don't.
That's the same thing.
Okay. I don't know. I guess it's just, yeah. But I understand what you're saying. I think that's a silly trope that shouldn't be around, as these crazy pheromones, right? Like, yeah, it's enough with that. But I don't know. Should we move on to Precious Cargo?
Probably, yeah. Let's do that.
So, if we have any listeners left, we should move on to Precious Cargo. Is there anything we want to talk about on Precious Cargo, since this is the Star Trek Enterprise podcast?
Okay. Talking to Melodic Trek hosts. What was up with the music of Precious Cargo? To me, the whole thing, I'm like, am I watching a TOS episode? Like, all the music was just like so campy. I did not enjoy the music of this one.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what? I honestly, I had a tough time when I was rewatching it the other night. I'm not a big fan of this episode. This is David Goodman wrote this episode, and he also wrote North Star. And if you guys have read them, he actually wrote the novels, the autobiography of James T. Kirk and the autobiography of Jean-Luc Picard, which are outstanding. And this is his first hour-long television episode that he ever wrote. And he says in there, he's like, I had no idea what I was doing. And he's surprised he didn't get fired after writing this. And
right.
There's a quote from an interview with him where he says, he thinks it's kind of cool that he's known for one of the worst episodes of Star Trek. So, it's kind of funny, but yeah, he's like, it didn't translate very well from the episode that he was trying to write. But in a nutshell, it's not a very good episode.
Yeah, I agree.
If we were to have a see it or skip it, this would be a skip it. This would definitely be a skip it, right, Richard?
There you go.
Yeah, probably.
So it was funny because the last time I was on Warp 5, we were talking about the Ferengi, well, the not named Ferengi, right? What was the name of that episode?
Acquisition.
Acquisition.
we just
that's
talked
right.
about it.
And Captain Archer was exactly the same in Acquisition as he is here. Like, he is playing the fool just like a fiddle. Like, he is like, oh, well, getting the guy who was left behind, and he was like, well, we're putting you on trial and you're going to be sentenced to prison, and just making the guy, I mean, it was just so perfect. The same that he did with Acquisition, with the Ferengi. And I thought, man, Captain Archer's exactly the same. It's pretty cool. I liked seeing that.
Yeah, he's doing that play where he's playing like I don't know if I can control them. It's kind of interesting.
That Vulcan magistrate, I don't know. You're just going to have to live with the sentence. I don't know what you're going to have to do unless you help us.
Yes. Yeah. Well, these aliens, they don't know the humans, right? So it's a card that they can play a couple of times, I guess.
Yes, and we see it. Captain Archer's getting good at that.
What do you guys think of the personality difference between Kaitana and Kamala?
Oh, night and day. Well, obviously.
Oh, yeah. Aggressive versus passive? Would you call it
Kamala?
Yeah, Kamala passive?
No, I would say mean versus nice.
Mean versus nice. So you think Kaitana's mean?
Yes. She's very mean and entitled, but again, is that her choice? Well, yeah, it is her choice. She was born and bred to be royalty, and no, you still have a choice. You can be royalty and live in this class system and have people, serve you and bring you everything and still be nice.
See, Amy, you probably haven't seen it yet, but Kaitana reminds me a lot of the original series episode Alan of Troyes. And we've got another, royal leader here who's really snotty, but with Kirk, and she's all like yelling at him, and she's like, cut my food, and, things like that. And so this character reminds me a lot of her. So in a way, this Precious Cargo does feel like a bit more of a TOS episode than anything else because of that. But again, that's another stereotypical trope as well of this, snotty woman leader, right? Who's like,
well, not even woman, just a snotty, rich, entitled leader. That you are my subject. I mean, I've seen it plenty of time where men leaders are, you will do this for me and do this for me, and dismissive of the help. I think it's.
But do you think that they're portrayed differently when they're men versus women?
No.
Okay.
I think. Yeah, I
Richard,
know.
what do you think? When they portray like these snotty, royalty men versus snotty royalty women, do you think it's a difference between the portrayals usually?
No, not necessarily. Not with snotty. No, no, I wouldn't think so. I mean, they're pretty much the same. I mean, yeah, entitled little. Yeah.
See, I think that when they portray royalty, generally, if they have I will confess to this one here. I think that when they have these isolated women royalty figures that are young, they're generally portrayed more in this negative light of snotty and entitled than you would find with male royalty characters. There are snotty male royalty characters written as well, but I think that there's more female snotty royalty characters.
Okay.
No, I can see that. Yeah, when you're talking about the amount of, because I thought you were talking about how they're portrayed, or how they act and whatnot. But yeah, I actually will agree with you on that one. That there are more snotty, I guess, women. When it comes to the show, not in general.
And then and then they need to be tamed and brought down a notch by the the male lead of the episode, right?
Right, exactly. Like it's a father-daughter sort of example or something like that. Teaching.
So I don't know I don't think Amy agrees, but I don't know.
No, I don't. Well, but talking about that, I felt like in Precious Cargo that her being snotty and entitled didn't play very well. And I just felt like, I don't know if it was the actor doing it or if it was just the chemistry or lack thereof between her and Tripp.
No, I think it was the script.
The script, it just felt so forced and so campy and so predictable. And, now they're in tight quarters and now they're even more, annoying to each other. And she has to roll her eyes at everything that Tripp does. And I was just like, really, please, you're going to be this terrible, snotty person, even when he's trying to save you. It didn't seem very relatable to me. And it just seemed like it was this fake contempt to try and build the story and the save at the end, I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't buy it.
I had a tough time with this episode rewatching it again. Like I said, like my mind was wandering quite a bit last night when I was watching it, and I'm like, it's not an easy episode to watch because it's not that good.
Well, and I think like he's saving your life, and no matter what station you are or what socioeconomic status you are, like he's got more knowledge and more strength. Obviously, she couldn't even open up that jar of beef jerky. I mean, that was very annoying to me as a female. Just please. But either way, like you've got someone who's doing something for you and you're still going to be bitter and snotty about it. It didn't seem to fly for me.
Yeah, but even in this day, there are people like that all over the place.
You think?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, very much so.
Excellent.
I would hope as society that we have progressed.
I don't.
Oh no, not completely, but there are definitely a lot.
I don't think we're ever going to get to a Star Trek future myself. I'm not too optimistic on that. I love Star Trek, and I wish we get there, but I just don't think that we can ever get there.
Not to a purist like it is on Star Trek. No, there's no way.
Just nicer to each other and stop.
Maybe nicer, yeah, but I mean, when it comes to like entitlement and just being rude to each other, I mean, I don't think that'll ever go away. In general.
Well, I guess we should probably wrap her up here. Do you guys have any other final thoughts? Anything else you want to say on the topic that we tried to talk about today? I'm sorry I took you guys all over the place. And for the people, if anybody's listened all the way to the end, please understand that like I loved Star Trek, and I believe that I try and keep an open mind. I understand that everybody has different opinions, and I try and see everything from everybody's point of view. And I've tried to speak with my heart here, and I'm not trying to offend anybody with the things that I've said. I'm trying to open up a dialogue, and I'm trying to talk about issues that I'm confused and concerned about. And I'm doing my best to try and understand other people's points of views. And that's why I want to talk about them, and I wanted to see what other people thought. And these are episodes that are generally pushed to the side, and so I think that's what makes them even more interesting to talk about, is because they're episodes that aren't talked about too often. Because, again, I'll say it again, I believe that people just boil it down to the lowest common denominator, and they don't look past that, and they don't see what's really good about the episode. So, Amy and Richard, I want to thank you for coming on. I appreciate it very much. And I'm glad that we've had this discussion, and I hope people enjoy the discussion. I hope they understand where our hearts are when we're talking about these episodes, and because it's not easy to talk about these topics. Like I said,
it isn't, especially in this day and age when there is so much fear and so much backlash of, oh, you offended me. And it does take some amount of courage to say, well, I see the episode this way, and hopefully people don't get offended. And how could you see it that way? You're, whatever, and start throwing names at you. And it's like, well, my experience, and you view Star Trek as in anything through your culture and through your experience that you have had in life. And I know sometimes I am a bit naive, and I want there to be this Star Trek future, and I feel that we have progressed, and some people, oh, well, and then they tell me I'm so wrong, and da-da-da. But to be honest and to to say, well, this is my point of view, and I'm mature enough and adult enough to see your perspective, think about it, and decide where that fits into our headcanon, if you will. And so I appreciate you talking these difficult subjects, because it's a harsh world sometimes in public courthouse there on social media.
So whenever I see these issues come up, whether it be sexual assault or something that's very difficult to talk to you about, I have a very select and very close circle of friends that I actually have a no filter with, and it's vice versa. And honestly, Brandon, I want to thank you for doing this, because it just made me think about those people that I actually am grateful to have, that I could not have a filter at all, like my wife and a couple of good friends that I have, that I can just be open and honest and say it how it is, versus without being ridiculed and chastised publicly on Facebook or wherever I say it or whatnot. And, these kind of issues do need to be discussed, and they're very important issues to be discussed. And, I really wish that we could dive into this subject a little bit further without the fear of being, chastised. And it's unfortunate that we live in the time where we have to watch for ourselves like that. And, if anything, if any progression is going to happen, then we need to have take the gloves off, unfiltered, and have this kind of discussion versus being afraid of each other and what people think. So I want to thank you for us doing this, and I really do appreciate it, because it's making me grateful that I have those friends that I have, that we can do that.
And again, so because it's a part of the discussion here that we had, I mean, all the people that were, strong enough to use the hashtag #MeToo, this past month and stuff, you helped to, bring awareness to people that, that aren't aware of it. And, I read some stories that were pretty shocking about people that I knew and things that they'd experienced. And, we recently had, just this past weekend, Anthony Rapp came forward about his sexual assault with Kevin Spacey, and it's the timing of it doesn't matter. If it happened, it happened. Right. And when people are ready to discuss it, if they ever become ready to discuss it, that's the right time to talk about it. Right? It doesn't matter how long ago or how soon or how much time has passed,
or with
whom or whatever. And it's out there, and we are aware of these things, and it just takes us time to understand them. And discussions like this help us to understand. So I hope everybody's enjoyed our conversation today. And I'm sorry we kind of went off the rails a couple of times into weird directions, but the perfect mate is not the only thing we've been discussing here on the network this past week. So take a listen to this clip and see what else you may have missed elsewhere on Trek FM.
Previously on Trek.fm, the 602 Club.
I know, I went all in. I think if it came up short, I think there was going to be a lot of screen caps with a lot of people. I think even on podcasts, I've been throwing it all like, oh, this is going to be one of the best. Trust me on this one. Yeah, Thor 2, ignore that. This one will be the bee's knees, as it were. So, yeah, there was a lot of pressure. Right? I don't think just on Marvel and Taiki Waititi, but on me, myself, with my audacious claims.
Warp 5.
I tweeted John Billingsley last night while I was watching this episode. I'm like, I gotta admit, if I'm alone on the ship, I'm walking around naked too.
Okay. All right. So that was my next question, just getting that. And Brandon's already answered it, which, I thought that would probably be his answer.
To the journey!
I always want to know, why haven't they done a Gardner Forever movie in general? For me, that's such a cool go-to concept.
Yeah.
If you're going to make a Star Trek movie, get the Guardian of Forever in there. That would be awesome. And no one has ever thought that was cool enough to do yet. So we're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it never really gets reprised that much, does it? Except, obviously, in the animated series. Well, you do get the Iconian Gateways later, which are a similar sort of concept, aren't they?
But not the same.
Well, they don't talk back to you.
I don't think you can travel through time with those, can you? I think they're more just space.
The final frontier. These are the... Oh, sorry.
Meta Treks.
I'm feeling a Star Trek Stranger Things mashup where Spock starts playing with the lights on the Enterprise and Captain Kirk strings a bunch of Christmas lights around his quarters, and
that's actually what happened in that episode of The Next Generation when there are the dark matter pockets. That was actually Spock just messing with him.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
So check out these shows and find out what we're talking about in your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe and beyond. If you're a Apple user, please be sure to hit the subscribe button in Apple Podcasts on iPhone, iPad, Apple TV, or the desktop iTunes app and get the latest episodes as soon as they are published. And while you're there, please leave us a star rating and a written review.
If you're not an Apple user, we've got you covered as well. You can find our shows basically everywhere. Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Windows Phone, in most third-party apps, and you can stream and download the MP3 file from our website or grab the RSS link. And we're in more places too. Richard, did you see that post on the Babel conference? And someone's like, oh, I'm going to leave the Apple and go get a Samsung, Android. And we're like, why would you do that? And they were worried about getting Earl Grey and Trek FM. And there were people posting all these different apps that they listen to us on. So
I did not see that thread.
No, I didn't see it either.
Oh. I guess some people aren't on the Babel conference as much as they say they are.
Yeah. Richard, since you seem to forget about the Babel conference, would you like to tell us all about the Babel conference?
We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show, and there are many ways you can do that. The best place to join in the larger discussion is the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, B-A-B-E-L, into the search field on Facebook and join in all the fun.
You can also find the network on Twitter at TrekFM and on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. And if you'd like to send us a voice transmission, the comm officer has the frequency open. Just go to speakpipe.com/TrekFM, record a message, and we'll add it to a future episode. Richard, where can people find you when you're not sneakily trying to examine the perfect mate and tripping and knocking over the thing and making her come out of her thing early? Boy, did I just use the thing a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, you did. Well, they can find me in the Babel Conference. I pop in here and there, and they can also find me on Twitter. My handle is xransom, and they can also hear me talk about everything TNG on Earl Grey.
And Amy, where can people find you when you're not having trouble opening cans of beef jerky?
Well, you can find me here on the network. I co-host Earl Grey with Richard and Justin.
Stinky Richard.
Yeah. We talk all
that's a joke from the last episode.
All things TNG. You can also find me on The Edge, where I get to host with Brandon and Michael. And I do a little side show called Postcards from the Edge, where we talk about fan response for Discovery. You can find me on Twitter at Miss Amy Nelson. But my favorite place, which I read thoroughly compared to these two knuckleheads, is on the Babel Conference. And Brandon, where can people find you?
Knucklehead.
If they can't find you on the Babel Conference.
When I'm not acting like an idiot succumbing to the pheromones of all the women around me, you can find me on Twitter at Brandon-Shea. You can find me every once in a while in the Babel Conference poking my head up. You can find me on The Edge with Amy every once in a while. That's our Star Trek Discovery podcast. You can find me over on the Fandom Podcast Network with my friends Chris and Tom, where we talk about Alfred Hitchcock's movies on our podcast, Good Evening, and Alfred Hitchcock Podcast. If you'd like to send us an email, please do so. We would love to hear you. We'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to help us keep all our shows coming to you each week, you can become a patron of the network on Patreon. Just visit patreon.com/TrekFM to get all the details. Perks include early access to episodes, exclusive content, producer credits, and more, including an audio commentary with Amy, where she watches her first time watch of an animated Star Trek episode. I think it was Far Beyond the Stars. That was the past. We did it already.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was Far Beyond the Stars, I think. It was you and me that did it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But they could also become an associate producer.
They could. And how do they do that?
Well, you just join at the $25 level, and then you get your name. You get to pick your show. we'd love to have you.
And we have wonderful associate producers here on Warp 5. We've got many of them. We have the wonderful Norman C. Lau, Floyd Dorsey, who is our missing in action host tonight, Mike Morrison, who's over on Metatrex, Tim Cooper, Justin Ozer, who's a host over on Earl Grey, Mark Flessa, and Joe Saltzman. Thank you very much, everybody, for supporting Trek FM and Warp 5. Well, I guess that's it. I don't know what's coming up next week here. We're recording this on, November 1st, and I don't think this is coming out until, near the end of December, I believe. It's coming out. It's not coming out for a while.
Oh, dear.
Because I'm a couple episodes ahead. So, but...
More than a couple.
Yeah, so and we're also only releasing every other week, so we're good into the Christmas season. Most people take Christmas off, but we won't be. So anyways, we're somewhere in the middle of December, I think, when this comes out. So Merry Christmas, everybody, and Happy Holidays. Did you want to say Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays?
Merry Christmas, listeners.
Richard?
It's Christmas! Oh.
Well, by the time this comes out, I should be on my winter break, so I will be very enjoying my 2 weeks off of work. Not to rub it in.
We'll see you all next time on Warp 5. David Goodman actually wrote this episode, and he wrote North Star, right? What are you doing, Richard?
Sorry, bases are loaded.
Oh, jeez.
Sorry.
Oh my goodness.